BEM. This is an introduction to BEM. It's a naming convention that we can implement in our projects to make while we're developing components or we have right classes. We can use this methodology to make it easier for us and also for others to follow. And so everyone writing on working on the same code will be aligned. So these methodologies were introduced since there were problems to organize the CSS. That's why these such type of methods were introduced. There are other similar techniques also, but this one seems commonly accepted to all and easier to. For. So we had some CSS issues. Is like if we are working, we are get a project with already that has so many pages and we need to make modifications, then in most cases we don't touch the old code that is already there. We will write new classes on top of that, and we will write that adds more and more css. So when two three developers start working on the same css, the css will become huge. So if we practice and make such that's we can directly go to the CSS and change there, and we from the by reading the CSS we can have some idea where this will get up. And regarding specificity and overriding, we may have seen long CSS scopes. So to override that, we need again need that long scope, that same number of classes. So for example, we can check. See, I already have a few cards done, and CSS done. So for the bottom row of cards, I have written in the whole way that we usually do. Um, Name for the wrapper and then styling the inner elements according to that um class. Like we have the card class and then like card img, card h3, etc. So for a small project or small one page or a few pages, this may be okay. There may not be any complication, but the scope is large. This may not be easily scalable. For example, if and if for example, if I want to and make title red with a class, can we easily do that with a class? No, because it already has a class and an element. So we will need either uh, classes or same number of specificity. Then only we can override that. And also like giving generic names like hero description, title, etc, etc. So in these cases also we can uh, easily identify which places will get affected with the css, so we can't change this later or someone else cannot change this. Writing in this may result to writing cs in one place and it may break get applied in another due to inheritance, or the same class will be added there also. And changing markup, that case, if these all headings, the main headings are h3, this is h3. So if in case, in later case, if somebody adds an I'd say an H3 here, then we need to change these to uh, 4 and these to H5. So this is a style, and we let me change this to, if we make any change in the HTML, style is gone. So that is also that can also be avoided with this BEM. So BEM stands for block element modifier. Though, so these three are the BEM entities: block, element, and the modifier. And it's a component based approach in web development. This was, I already told that this was introduced long back, before this component architecture like React, all that was introduced. So for writing HTML, a standard for writing HTML and CSS, that was not much structured in that time. So this this is trying to avoid these common CSS problems like styling for IDs and tag selector. So in BEM it is only classes, and keeping the specificity low. That means I will show that CSS written in BEM. So this is flat. That means one class, one CSS rule. So specificity will be 10. So for learning specificity, I recommend going to the CSS page. This page I recommend. Not only specificity, you can go through all the topics here. This is a good resource. So so like I mentioned one case earlier, changing the markup later. So in this case, this is written in BEM. So I will come to that later, I think. So BEM, the syntax is block, and element. For element there is a double underscore block, then double underscore, then element. For modifier we use a double dash. Then check the documentation. It for naming convention, it is written there. For the modifier, it uses an underscore, and alternate naming is also mentioned. The double dash is actually mentioned in the alternate naming. The block is the functionally independent, that one component, single thing. It can be small as button, or a cart, or like that. And this can be nested blocks inside block, like in the React components, parent child component. Blocks can be nested in, can have any number of nesting levels. So naming, this is the naming. You can use small letter, a single word or two words separated by a hyphen, site header, HTML, and in CSS it will look like this, one class, and we need to avoid this type of overqualifying CSS, two classes or one element or anything like that. We need to keep that flat, one class. For name, element is the child. The child uh, is the next entity inside the block, and it is dependent to the block, context dependent to the parent block. That means if the tabs is the block, then the child will be tabs double underscore item. So it is we make a connection with by writing the name. Make a connection to the block. So block double underscore and item. So here it's a food item underscore title. So title is the it is the title element, but the name should include the block also. In HTML, it will look like this. Example. For CSS, we need to keep in mind the same rules. A tabs item is the element, so we need to write CS style in the tabs item element selector only, and we don't need to add the block or any other parent class. We don't need to add. We need to avoid that. And one thing is that element can block contains element, and nested blocks are added inside the elements. So you can have nested blocks. And one thing is that element there is no element of element. So we check the documentation states an element is always a part of block, not another element. So element is part of block only, not another element. This means that it can't define a hierarchy such as block, element, and element. Element 1 and element 2 cannot be a child of element, another element, a parent element. So in this case, we can make this element and another block, nested block. Then we can write. And also there is another technique called mix. That means this is the block element. This can also we can also add a block name to that element. So it will be a block and also an element of another block. Like this is example, this button is a block, nested block, and this card is a block, and button is a nested block. So this can it's a better it's a good practice to not give margins to blocks. So for margins and width and layouting, uh, we need to create outer wrappers, and inside the wrapper we must replace the blocks. That means blocks, it's not good idea to give margin to blocks. So in this case, see this card button, that is the button is a child element of the card, but in the same time it is also given a class called button to make that a block, button block. It can have button text, nested elements, button text, button icon. Element while we create block, name it underscore element. Let's name it the proper way. Card, card figure. Then if we have an image inside, then its class will be card as image, not card underscore figure. This we need to avoid. We can have a nested HTML tags, nested HTML tags, but this will be an element of card. Image will be part of the card block, not the figure. So we can have nested HTML tags, but we should know that block only, not the outer element. Modifiers we use for modifying the property of these blocks and elements. Modifier can be block modifier or element modifier. Optional. If we want to change the behavior, then we can use a modifier. And modifier also we need to follow that same. We can adopt the double dash syntax. So for this one, in the example, first one is tabs double dash spread. So this one is a block modifier. Tabs is obviously a block. Next one, button hyphen theme red. So button theme red, but this one is also a block modifier. Button is a block. And the last one, user underscore underscore image hyphen small. So this one is an element modifier. So the block is a user, then element is the user image, then this whole thing is the modifier user image small. So in HTML it will look like this. CSS also, like in the case of block and element, we should not try adding or qualifying this selector with more classes. We need to avoid adding more classes. We just need to keep the CSS flat, the same specificity. So here three classes, so total 30 points will be there. So here only we can easily override that. So avoid that. Well, some that I had earlier shown, I have two versions of these cards. The bottom one is just as we usually write without the BEM, and here it's with the BEM. So I had shown the case of changing next changing HTML in a later stage. If we change these two, will not break the style. So it will be fine. And the case for changing a card, we can make a modifier. Highlight plus we can override with a single class, no issues. So yeah, that's it. So please go through the M documentation and try to get familiar with this. Thank you.